What's up everyone, it's Endymion, and as you are likely already aware, Call of Duty has been mired in controversy after removing Nickmercs' bundle from their shop after the popular streamer voiced his opinions on corporations leaving children alone. This entire situation has sparked an uproar with thousands of people pushing back against Activision Blizzard, saying that Nickmercs was being punished because he doesn't bow down to the woke agenda. This has led to other stories like DrDisRespect uninstalling the game and fellow streamer Tim the Tatman, who's friends with Nickmercs, asking Activision to remove his bundle as well in support of his friend. All of this has opened the public's eye ever more to the realization that this push of LGBT propaganda and things like gender ideology on children to be nothing more than performative and soulless corporate shilling to increase ESG scores from investors. For those of you unaware of what ESG even is, basically each company has what can only be described as a social credit score. The more you push stuff within your company that these investors want, the higher your score becomes. With places like Twitter having a lower ESG score, for example, because of Elon Musk and his push for free speech on that platform. It's why Activision has essentially turned Overwatch into a woke content generation machine. Because let's be real, the fact over 90% of Overwatch's characters in some way identifying or representing various gender identities is only being done to increase Activision's ESG score. So shareholders and investors will be more inclined to finance the company. And this disingenuous shilling of woke identity politics was inevitably going to spill into Call of Duty. And this is where today's story comes into play, with Hasan Piker, a popular liberal streamer, calling out DrDisRespect for his opinions on the Nickmercs situation. So in case you didn't hear Hasan's words on the two-time, I figured you should see it for context reasons, so here, watch.
Yes, he is more loyal to Nickmercs having his skin than his own wife. I know.
Like who's this fat phony? Hasan? Hasan?
Let's get it, baby.
This fat phony? He's so concerned about everything. He's concerned about the two-time and what it's like. These people, man. This guy wouldn't. See, he wouldn't. See, that's the thing too. Like, he wouldn't say these type of things if we're standing next to each other. You know, he wouldn't.
I think we're clear.
Because he knows there's repercussions.
And as I was making this video, Nickmercs also weighed in on Hasan, so let's watch that too.
And, I think up until that week, Hasan and I were pretty cool. And I know he's not going to lose any sleep over our relationship or anything, man. I'm not either. But after hearing him say what he said about Doc, that motherfucker's dead to me. I DM'd him as soon as I heard it, and I said, you know what? Have your opinions. We can agree to disagree. You can say the things that you want to say, of course. But you're going to go up there and say that shit about Doc on his fucking his anniversary, right? It's a guy's anniversary. And you're saying shit like that in front of all those people? You're just going to let that rip?
I have to agree with Nickmercs here. I've seen a lot of comments online calling Hasan a champagne socialist. And honestly, anytime I see anything involving the guy, he keeps confirming that opinion as truth. For those unaware, a champagne socialist is someone who pushes socialism onto others while they enjoy a luxurious lifestyle that completely contradicts the values and concepts of socialism. Hasan pushes socialism onto his very young and impressionable viewers, and it sickens me, if I'm being honest. Because socialists believe wealth and power should be distributed equally. They believe everyone should have the same things, we'd all live in the same size homes, with the same kind of cars, the same level of healthcare, all of it. In theory, socialism looks to equalize society. Yet the people who push these concepts like Hasan live in multi-million-dollar homes and very clearly do not live by what they preach. Hasan and his views on socialism are a lot like Call of Duty when it comes to their push for LGBT values. On the surface, both Hasan and Activision as a corporation push the idea of one thing, which in this case would be stuff like socialism and woke agenda nonsense, while both parties don't practice anything that they push. Essentially what I'm getting at here is that people like Hasan and companies like Activision are hypocritical. They push what is considered politically correct because they know they can hide behind convenient, virtuous ideas. But they are the opposite of what they preach. It's why whenever someone like Hasan says anything, you can't really take it as gospel. Because you know deep down even he doesn't believe it, and he's only saying it because that's what's being pushed by corporations as right think. It's why this entire Nickmercs leave the kids alone situation blew up in the first place. We're all seeing in real time what can happen when you publicly oppose what the mega corporations deem as wrong think. There's nothing controversial about what Nickmercs said anyways, and DrDisRespect is right by saying that Hasan would never dare say those things to him in person. Because these woke lunatics know what they're saying is insane to begin with, but they only say it because it's the status quo. I firmly believe that if Hasan was at his level that he was now around 15 years ago, he would be pushing conservative values instead of liberal ones.
And you're bold enough to grab an ass cheek and then maybe even get some hand play downstairs. It's time to get out of there, and it's time to separate her from her herd, meaning her crowd of girlfriends that are going to do their best to cock block you because they're fat and lonely.
After all, just look at the stark contrast between how society and things like entertainment were in the early 2000s compared to now. There was no push for gender identities or things like transitioning children because it wasn't the status quo. And because of it, companies were pushing things like being pro-American, and honestly, a lot of companies like Activision were far more leaning into what is considered conservative thinking back then. Flash forward to now, and all the things that were right think back then have now been reversed. And it proves to me anyway that you can't take anything someone like Hasan or these mega corpos say, during Pride Month no less, as anything other than being carefully constructed, packaged versions of talking points they're told to push. You even have websites like them.com calling the controversy surrounding Call of Duty and Nickmercs as right-wing, as if supporting the concept of leaving children alone and allowing them to live free of political views is somehow a bad thing. The truth is that, like any other time in history, political movements have and always will target children due to how impressionable they are. If you want your ideologies and concepts to linger on throughout history, you have to ensure there's a population that's being indoctrinated and formed to those values. It's why you're seeing so many stories about children transitioning, which, if I'm being honest with you, whenever I see a child transitioning, I just look at it the same way when someone says their dog's a vegan. We all know if the dog could choose, it would take meat over being a vegan any day.
Food type thing. It's more palatable as she's drinking loads of water. But no, really took to it.
2 bowls here, right?
Oh, no.
One is full of vegetables and one is full of meat. Storm.
Right.
Storm, we
We're gonna
hate to
let
put
her
the
do-
temptation in front of you,
You
but
ready
it's
for
over to you.
lunch, Storm?
Right?
Oh, I'm
Let her go.
Should I let her go?
Let her go.
Oh, she's obviously going to go. Obviously. Oh, you little...
Yes.
I didn't swear.
And there is natural selection. Oh, no.
Because the concept of veganism goes against the biological structure of what animals like cats or dogs are at their core. And it's the same with children. There's not a single child on this planet around the ages of 5 to 10 who genuinely wants to have their bodily organs removed or changed. And if they do, it's absolutely 100% incentivized and pushed by their parents or someone close to them, likely a teacher or counselor within a school system. Children are not politically aligned, regardless of what woke morons try to say. It just isn't the case. Kids are very obviously still developing in every way from the day they're born and even well into their mid-20s. A child does not have the mental capacity or ability to properly make life-altering decisions. They just don't. They're kids, for crying out loud. Most of them think they're dinosaurs when they're little. So what are you supposed to do? Go on the black market and buy some crocodiles and surgically graft crocodile parts to a kid because they say they're a dinosaur? Of course that sounds insane, but that's what's happening here and what Nickmercs and DrDisRespect and Tim the Tatman are pushing against. Children are not born political. They are influenced and formed to fit structures based on the adults around them. And we've seen in the past what happens when insane people successfully push their ideas. And of course, when people reject what corpos push, you get articles backed by those corporations calling the naysayers all kinds of things. Take for example, Rolling Stone, which said in their article titled, "Outrage over Call of Duty, LGBTQ pride brings us full circle to Gamergate." Almost a decade ago, video game culture helped give rise to the anti-woke movement that continues to plague us today. The article is essentially one long rant that insults anyone who thinks kids should be left alone. And Rolling Stone goes as far as to claim it's no big deal that people are boycotting Call of Duty. claiming conservatives are just mad that they don't control these brands. But for a movement that advocates for acceptance, they are wildly vitriolic towards any sort of criticism. It's much easier to just call your critics homophobic or racist than to actually hear what they're saying these days. While I'm sure there are people who are mad gay people exist to begin with, I'm not one of them. I'm not mad that you can sport a pride flag in a video game, but I do find it interesting how Call of Duty has more pride flags available than actual country flags. Apparently, the lack of certain flags like Mexico, China, Israel, and a few others are not in COD because of legal reasons pertaining to those countries. They either want money for their flags to be represented or simply don't want to be associated with the game due to its warlike setting. Either way, it is unfortunate that these sort of things happen, but like I've said in the past, having imagery in your game that pertains to things like gender flags doesn't bother me. But it does bother me when I'm called a bigot or some version of phobic because I don't want to use those flags or have those ideas pushed on me 24/7 from all angles. Most of what ordinary hardworking people want from these companies is not the erasure of LGBT media.
And as I was making this video, even more information has come out and Nickmercs has spoken post this whole thing happening. So here's 2 clips of him explaining a lot of things, so please watch.
All the people that came to me privately, you know what I mean? Like DMs, phone calls, and texts. And it would always start with, hey man, can't publicly, go to bat for you. Basically, is what they were saying. They just don't want to be. And I mean, I understand not wanting to be in the mess because, I mean, it gets a little bit crazy. I mean, I didn't want to be in it either. But at the same time, like, I stand by everything that I said. And that's where I'm at. That's where I land. These articles painted me up. A lot of the headlines said anti-LGB, That's what they said. That's what that comment was. It was anti. What? How the fuck was that anti? It had not. It was. It's just, listen. These kids are very young. Can't they just go be kids? Can't they just be children? Got nothing to do with that. I don't know, man. Every headline said that. Did you read them? I was like, yo, Jesus Christ, man.
Most people just don't want these ideas pushed onto them. And when they refuse it, I don't think threatening them to embrace it or lose everything is the way to go about it either. As I've said in my previous Call of Duty video, what Nickmercs said is not anti-LGBT in any way. He just simply believes children should be left alone and shouldn't be forced to adopt anything political, regardless of affiliation. But when you have people like Hasan openly attacking people like Nick or Doc for not bending the knee, and doing low blows like talking about his wife, it just comes off as gross. Call of Duty has also, because of this backlash, dropped lower on the top sellers list, but they are still there because of how massive the franchise is. It's going to take a lot to persuade Activision to right their wrongs, and it's up to ordinary people like always to do the heavy lifting. Rome wasn't built in a day, and it's going to take more than a single controversy to destabilize a behemoth like Call of Duty. But this particular story has proven that you are not powerless. And I encourage each and every one of you to use your voice to speak about what matters to you most. Because when you don't, that's how evil wins. So thank you for watching, like the video, and subscribe if you'd like to see more. Have a great day, question everything, and I'll see you in the next one.